Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson from Creative Guitar Studio. Thanks for joining me for another one of my guitar lessons. This time we're going to be discussing songwriting from the perspective of using scales. And this was sent in as a question from Christopher. He's out in Pritzfeld, Germany. He wrote in saying, I've been working on scales for around 7 months now. Sadly, I'm not having too much luck making them work for me. When I listen to great players, they are using scales to really make a melody flow. I just can't seem to put the notes in the correct combinations to do this myself. Can you teach the way to approach scales and songwriting with scales? From Christopher in Pritzfeld, Germany. Well, hey, thanks for writing in, Christopher. What you're going through is very common for players in their first year of getting to know the scales. Learning scale shapes and patterns is obviously the first step, but what needs to happen as quickly as possible is to learn how the scale can operate both on its own and around chords, as well as how you'll need to prepare and maintain your chops with scales as well. So scale practice can be done either with or without chords in the background, and within a practice day, I would suggest that players should do both kinds of approaches. So in this video, we'll discuss methods for the ways you'll need to practice, think, prepare, and approach scale melody study with, as well as without, the use of backing track chord harmony. In getting started with the idea of composing a melody with a scale you've been employing as an exercise for some time, it's important to break the scale up into some good segments that we can use to create melody from later on. So for our lesson, these segments will include the full 7-tone scale, the 5-note pentatonic scale, and then the 4-note 7th chord arpeggio. Now in example 1, I've taken a complete 7-tone selection of notes from the A natural minor scale, and I've just applied it to the fretboard in a unique way. I think that's important too. Here we're going to use the upper 4 guitar strings in the 5th position. Here's how this segment sounds. It's example number 1 in your handout. Now in example 2, I've created a pentatonic layout in the same position on the fretboard. Now keep in mind that pentatonic is a very important scale for melody creation, since it eliminates the half steps from the full 7-tone scale. So here's how example number 2 sounds. And finally, in example 3, I've created a layout in the same position again, this time of the 4-note 7th chord arpeggio. And this is crucial for the knowledge of your chord tones, because we're going to use them for targeting the resolution of our phrases. So here's example number 3. So now we've done the full 7-tone scale, the same tonality for pentatonic, and we've done the same tonality off of the harmony for the 7th chord arpeggio. So now the next thing we're going to look at is creating a simple melodic statement upon the tonal center chord of the key that we're in. And just to clarify once again, we are in the key of A minor. And so our tonal center chord will of course be A minor. And now for example 4, I have a melodic statement that I've generated entirely from the A minor pentatonic scale. And the resolution tone, and this is important, the resolution tone of this melody is going to be a note that was derived from one of the chord tones found from within that arpeggio. Now the tone in particular for my example is going to be the minor third. It's going to be the C note. And for example number 4, we're going to just target into that tone. So here's example number 4, the melodic example. So that's the pentatonic concept, targeting into the C note. Here it is again, example number 4. Now in example 5, I've simply expanded upon the melodic idea by incorporating notes from the full 7-tone scale. So now here's example number 5. Starts coloring it up a little bit differently. So now let's move on. Let's review though before we carry to the next exercise. There's some things to keep in perspective with our system. You know, you start off by establishing the key center for the melody. In our case, it was A minor. And then you build a starter melody targeting the resolution tone. That was that C tone from the arpeggio, or one of the arpeggio notes. It doesn't have to be the minor third or the major third or whatever. It can be any of them. It sounds a little bit more hip to use the third or the seventh. Maybe the fifth would come next, and landing on the root all the time might sound a little hokey, so you want to watch that one. But we used pentatonic scale initially, and then we added in some of the 7-tone scale notes to just round things off. But let's carry on and expand things with this melody further. So up till now, we've kept the rhythmic ideas very simple. We've just been using those eighth notes up till now. So let's go beyond that and include some 16ths with the addition also of some rhythmic syncopation. So here's example number 6. It's going to use a lot of 16th notes up front. And it's going to have that syncopation in the end. So here's example number 6 again. You notice we're still resolving into that C note. And as you can tell, the melody has expanded a great deal from where it started off in the beginning. We have the inclusion of more melodic concepts as we went along, and then, of course, we expanded with the rhythmic side of things as well. But our final step in the process is going to be to give the melody more dynamic feel by paying attention to stresses and accent points in the phrase, as well as including some phrasing devices in the forms of slides and pull-offs. So here's how the line from example 6 has grown. This is example number 7. So by pushing the dynamics a little bit more, I'm using a little bit more vibrato, I've got the slide, the pull-off concepts included. It's really starting to gain a sense of having some life behind it. But now let's shift gears and take things further along in the development of all of this. We're going to take it to looking at pre-established chords in the background. Initially here what we've been looking at is just taking a scale and creating melody with nothing in the background. We don't have a harmony or chord progression in the background right now. So in order to completely understand harmonic concepts, before we move into the world of having a jam track behind us, it's really important to understand how harmony operates inside of a key center. Now in example 8, I've laid out the harmony for the key that we've been working in, which is of course natural minor. And all these chords are found within the key center, and it's really important to understand that this idea of harmony for a key center can and should be memorized for all musical keys, so it's vital you do that. So here we're just going to walk through the key of A minor, starting on this small A minor triad chord, moving down to a G, then into an F, E minor, and play an open position D minor, move over to a C major, and then we'll have B diminished and to an open position A minor. So I just covered all the keys, chords. So you have that nice resolution too. You can hear it off of that diminished chord coming and resolving. You can also hear nice resolutions from the 7 chord coming back around to the root as well. So there's some strong points there. But at this area of the video, I'd like to take a look at an important list of ideas for when it comes to composing using a scale approach. Now, before we get into the idea of performing over a preset harmony, backing tracks, and working with pre-established chord harmonies, I wanted to run through some important elements here that I think are very crucial to becoming the best that you can possibly be when it comes to using scales in your approach to composing. And the first point that I made here is it's very important to have excellent control over your scales, your arpeggios, and your intervals. This means a lot of exercise work needs to go into it. You have to have a very good practice schedule worked out for yourself, work through the scales across the neck in 1-octave segments, 2-octave segments, 3 octaves, really understand how everything interconnects. This will at the same time be building your sense with ear training. So it's a huge one. Just realize that you need that excellent control. The next point is to memorize the scale sound and gain a very keen sense for harmony. What I mean by that in particular is if somebody plays you a Dorian mode, you should know that it's a Dorian mode. If somebody plays a minor 7th arpeggio, you should be able to hear that right away, that that's a minor 7th arpeggio. Somebody strums a minor 13 or a dominant 13 or any kind of quality chord in harmony, you should be able to recognize that. Now that is the whole department of ear training. It's a big topic. I've got lots of videos online about ear training, so it's a big topic. It's a very important one, however, and it will help immensely as you go through the process of composing using your scales. Now the next point up here is
there's literally vast amounts of practicing that has to go into creating even the most simple lines. And it doesn't matter who you are. Every great player has spent literally years and years of practicing and listening and study to be able to even create either a solo or a simple melody. In fact, I remember reading John Coltrane. He was a fanatic about practicing scales, and I can recall in this interview I read with him that he even used to go through scales in between sets at clubs, when he was doing a concert. So it's something that the great players will really focus on all the time. It's a very important concept that the practicing really never ends. So anyway, let's head next to this idea of melodies created using scales should have some kind of a sense of motion, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the next one too, the idea of tension and resolution. They have to create that ebb and flow of a melodic line. So the sense of motion is, sometimes people will call this the line having a call and response effect, where there's a statement made and it kind of needs to have that next statement to balance it out. And these can sometimes even occur over several measures in a piece of music. So realize that there's more to just coming up with a statement. There needs to be a statement flowing to another statement flowing somewhere else, and it's telling a story. Everything needs to be interwoven and connected. So that's a really important concept to have at the forefront of your mind when you're going to be creating your music. The next one, this is important. These are sort of three ideas that I believe are very important to you developing your skill set with this. Now, number one, we've talked about it a lot here, in-depth study. Number two, recording yourself. It allows you to have that different perspective about how your parts are coming together. And finally, performing live. Now, these 3 points are going to be what really breeds your success. Now, the in-depth study is giving you all the basic tools. The recording process is allowing you to become more in depth with the learning process and to really kind of tap into another perspective of how you sound, especially upon playback, of course. And the performance live, it does some very, very unique things. The most important of them being the control that you wind up having with the sense of adrenaline flow that happens when you're in front of an audience. That control of the adrenaline allows you to become more focused in your mind to the music. So you're able to begin controlling that adrenaline when you're live. You're able to focus deeper, and it's kind of like you're getting onto another, I guess, sense of awareness with the music. It's almost like you're tapping into a sense of unconscious with yourself. The more that you perform live and the more that you're able to control the adrenaline rush, and then whatever external factors, if you've got something with your monitor mix that you don't like, and you just begin blocking that stuff out, and you get more tuned into the music itself. So live performance is huge, recording yourself is huge, and then of course the study elements that precede that are very important as well. Now, the final point I wanted to make here is the fact that no two musicians are ever going to use scales the same, or especially have any kind of similar experiences, either with their training or with their composing or their improvising. Everyone is very unique. You might find if you write a lot of music down the road that you sort of begin copying yourself, or there have been times where even, I've found myself come up with a line, and I keep thinking as the line is growing that, gee, this sure sounds like a song I've heard before. Sometimes I can place it, sometimes I can't, but you just keep that work going on being able to understand what you're tapping into the back of your mind, so that the music you create is unique. Hopefully it's not something you've done before, and you have a very tuned in experience to every composing project that you put yourself into. Sometimes it can be difficult. Like I said, if you're writing a lot of music, you can start, and I know I've read that about other musicians, where they say that they're writing so many pieces that it's, they're starting to sound the same as they go through lines that they're building. So anyway, now that this is all of the way, let's head to the guitar again and take a look at a piece that I composed in the key of A minor, and also we're going to look at a melody that's going to fit on that. So let's go and do that next.
Well, once you've spent a good period of time testing out several chords and, working with ideas to create a good chord progression that you're happy with, the next step would be, of course, to make a recording. And we're going to listen to me play over top of a recording that I've made already. But before that, just realize that recordings will serve as your backdrop so that you can start building a melody over the chord movements that you've created. And it'll take a lot of testing and trial and error to create a melody that you're happy with. So settle in for the long haul. Over time, you'll get better at it. It'll be a faster process for you. And what I really suggest, though, is work very diligently to make the best chord progressions possible that you're going to be practicing improvisation over, because a lousy chord progression is just not going to be a lot of fun to try to play over. Now, in example number 9, I'm just going to play for you very bare bones here, just run through the changes that I've come up with. It's an 8-bar chord progression, and again, still in the key of A minor. Sounds like this. So that's the chord progression. It doesn't sound like, all that much on its own, but when you hear it with bass and drums, and I'm going to play a little filler track in the background with some higher chords as well. You'll hear them in the background of the track. But I'd like to just take a break now, go to hearing this with the jam behind me, and jam it out for you so you get a good idea what it sounds like. So let's move to that next. All right, so now let's move on to melody creation. And I think it's important for me to state here that, in your early days of composing some of your first melodies with scales and backing tracks, the process of melody construction will seem really frustrating and probably just extremely tiring for you to work on. But realize that even the professionals can take a long time to develop their songs. You've probably heard about Steely Dan and how infamous they are for their perfectionism and taking, in some cases, over a year just to write a handful of songs for an album. The band Boston's biggest hit, More Than a Feeling, took them 5 years to complete. So, be patient, enjoy the whole process, and let your imagination take hold. Test your phrases, both, with the track and without the track, and always work at adjusting rhythmically to balance out any kinds of musical ideas that don't seem to resolve or work out against the jam track recording upon playback. So anyway, here's the melody that I created for that jam track that you just heard, and after I perform it, I'm going to go live off the studio floor once again and play with the full jam mix so you can really hear how this melody connects. But here we are, example number 10. I'm just going to play down this melody for you, real bare bones. Sounds like this. Well, the study approach and the application of scales on the guitar is no doubt a really big project. When we consider the early days of memorizing the scale patterns, doing our interval ear training, studying improvisation and composing, as well as understanding, chord construction, key centers, and a bunch of other harmony and theory concepts, it can literally take years and years before we're using scales effortlessly. So along with applying the exercises I've discussed in this video, be sure to always continue expanding your knowledge, especially in respect to learning songs. That will be a huge help for you. Transcription as well as composing and improvisation are just simply paramount for your scale success over time. Anyway, that's all for now. Once again, thanks for watching. Have fun working on all this information. You can download the handout and an MP3 jam track for this video over at my website at andrewwasson.com, and you can follow me on Twitter, through Facebook, and on my other guitar blog YouTube channel. The links are all in the description box for you. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.